We have a lot of news to cover tonight, including this new evidence and testimony coming in the January 6th committee hearing tomorrow, which is planned to be the final one. And, you know, we get into law school every so often on this program. We're going to get into Barack Obama's unearthed law school manuscript and what he says about safeguarding American democracy, which is pretty relevant. But we begin with huge breaking news. $1 billion verdict. That is the total damages for the liar, proven in court to be a liar, and right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. He was just held accountable late today in court. You may recall we have been covering these cases in this story from the start because the lies matter, because the sanctions for them matter, because what is happening right now, tonight in America, is, according to so many victims' family, a modicum of justice long overdue for these families who lived through the unthinkable, the murder of their children at Sandy Hook. And the man you see on your screen tried to lie about and harass and defame and profit off all of that. Well, that ends. That ends today. That was put to an end in court with, and I want you to hear this number because it is way larger than any number I've ever read in any newscast to you as news. $965 million in damages against Mr. Jones awarded to the many victims, the parents, the families, who, as you know, if you followed the case, have detailed what they were put through, really just beyond words, by this liar, this charlatan. These grieving parents have recounted what was done to them and their families and how this escalated and how the profits that Mr. Jones was seeking came at the cost of violent threats, harassment, all because Mr. Jones was pushing something that is completely false. I will mention it once. He claimed the murder of their children was some kind of political hoax. This powerful verdict, throwing the book at Mr. Jones, took about 15 minutes in its entirety to read.
Roman numeral 1, compensatory damages. A, defamation/slander damages, past and future, $60 million. B, emotional distress damages, past and future, $60 million. $25 million. $30 million. $24 million. $10 million. $32,600,000. $73,600,000. $81,600,000, $36 million. Do you all agree that this is your verdict?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
It went on like that, and as is often said and is true in court cases that involve anything like this, nothing brings back the victims, nothing brings back the children. And most parents who go through anything like this deal with it their whole lives as a family trauma. What Mr. Jones did was not only completely illegally worsen that trauma, but really endanger those families, which was shown in these cases. There's been more than one case. This is now a liability for defamation, as well as the infliction of distress. It comes after that separate case we told you about in Texas, where a court charged Jones with what was then a huge $45 million fine and punishment. The verdict comes after this really tough testimony across these two trials from the parents.
It is one thing to lose a child. It's quite another thing when people take everything about your boy who is gone and your surviving child and your husband and everything you ever did in your life that is on the internet and harass you.
She's home by herself. She's really, really stressed. She'll say, I feel better when I'm at a friend's house because nobody knows who I am, but when I'm home, I feel like I'm a target.
It's just so hard to go see your 7-year-old child's headstone and to hear that people were desecrating it and urinating on it and threatening to dig it up. I don't know how to articulate to you what that feels like.
And it took a lot for the parents to even share this in court. That is the process. That's what's required. You could imagine, as I've mentioned in the very beginning of this process, that some would try to move on, not give it more time or attention. That proved very difficult, and so these families banded together. And this comes amidst the wider context of the internet and political lies in America, where free speech is defended, but defamation is still illegal and punishable. Now, Jones had testified in that first trial. In the second trial, the one that has brought him to this record-breaking punishment tonight, he showed basically no remorse. He said he's done apologizing. He left Connecticut in the middle of the trial without testifying. Here is what he said as this verdict broke, as the news came out today on InfoWars.
Ain't gonna be happening. Ain't no money. I killed the kids, folks. Listen, 57 million, 20 million, 50 million, 80 million, 100 million, blah, blah. You get $1 million. You get 100 million. You get a 50 million.
This is what he does. This is what he peddles. And if you think, gosh, this is all pretty fringe or extreme, or how much time should you give in your mind to Alex Jones, this has a lot of followers, and he is tied to certain right-wing movements. And while he can play tough while he runs away on his little internet show, the arm of the law is long here. All his companies, all his personal assets, everything in his name and the company's names can be now legally pursued. He also, of course, has the right to appeal the amount. But Judgment Day is here. The Connecticut Post reports statistics that show searches for Jones' name, the whole business that he does, the video I just showed you, just that clip, that kind of stuff, all of this skyrocketing you see when he turned, leaning into this hoax, this attack on the families, these lies. It's a reckoning in an age of disinformation. And let me tell you something. There are other people who I'm not equating exactly what they do, because every case, every person accused of anything has their own time, their own day in court. But there are other people who I can tell you for sure are a little more concerned tonight, because there are other cases that deal with defamation right now. And with this internet era, we are looking at a reckoning where some of these rules are being adjusted and thought anew when you see the spread of these kind of conspiracy theories and lies, and how, of course, they're weaponized not only for profit, but in our politics. I'll give you just one example. Fox News is facing a huge defamation suit from a company. It's not a left or right thing. The company Dominion, based on the defamation that they say Fox News knowingly, intentionally, and repeatedly practiced against the company. A judge has already rejected Fox's request to get out from under that. This may become a tougher and tougher time for proven liars to get away with it. And that's why it's the top story in America tonight here on The Beat. And we turn now to the Daily Beast's Will Sommer, who's been following this trial. His book is The Rise of QAnon and the Conspiracy That Unhinged America. We have turned to him as an expert on exactly these issues, and politics and journalism professor from Morgan State University, Jason Johnson. Will, I want to just get your bottom line take on the scale of today's punishment. Is it unprecedented?
I mean, it's enormous. I mean, it's just massive. I was watching the verdict come in today, and the first plaintiff, as people saw in the clip you played, got $120 million in his favor. And then I thought, wow, that's hefty for all the plaintiffs. And then you realize that's just one of them. And so, I mean, this is really enormous. I think, obviously, it remains to be seen how much they're going to collect of this money. There's still one more trial to go. There's the verdict in Texas already. But this, I think, is going to make it very difficult for Alex Jones and InfoWars to continue to operate.
Yeah, so just briefly on that point, based on your understanding, he's talking his, what he said on his show, but you think legally, if these are not narrowed or overturned, it could bankrupt his media empire?
I think it certainly could. I mean, we saw him already try to move his companies into bankruptcy as sort of legal maneuvers before this trial. There are these accusations that I think are pretty well founded that he's been kind of funneling money away to try to put it with family members. But it seems like the plaintiff's attorneys are onto that, and so that likely will not be successful. But look, I mean, this is not a small company either. I think people are saying, well, can he pay all this money? This is a company that at one point was making $800,000 a day. And so, there is a lot of money still to be mined here. And I think depending how much they make, we'll see. But I think it still makes a point about the fact that if you're in this business of lying for profit, I think it's going to come back on you.
Yeah, that's such a great point that you raise, because this deals with the right-wing, parts of the right-wing movement, parts of the MAGA movement that was aligned with Jones, Jason. And I want to be very clear. I've said this before, there's got to be a very high bar because there's free speech. Right. But a high bar does not mean no bar. And it's not surprising that if you go out over all standards of decency and engage the worst of the worst which is generally not touched even by other nefarious characters, you're going to find some energy there and some fever swamp there. And you might be able to sell them stuff and you might be able to make money off it. But just as you cannot make money telling people that they're buying a Porsche and you defraud them and sell them something else, in both a First Amendment context and a fraud context, you cannot knowingly peddle defamatory lies in America. I want to get your view on the politics, the intersection there, as well as play a little bit more of some of the contentious back and forth at the trial.
For years, you put a target on his back, didn't you?
Objection to the form of that, Judge.
Well, I mean,
Didn't you?
I admit it, I said his name. It's true.
These are real people. You know that, Mr. Jones?
I think you just told him to move on.
Just like all the Iraqis, but you liberals kill and love. It's just, you're unbelievable. You switch on emotions on and off when you want.
Why don't you show a little respect?
Objection, Judge.
I do not want to have a contempt hearing. I don't.
The judge at the end there warning about contempt, where if he kept speaking out of turn, he might have been jailed that day. And Jason, he's a difficult person even when he's losing. I mean, that's his nature. Right. Give us the wider political context you see here.
Tables turn, bridges burn, you live and you learn. Alex Jones was the person out there leading a cavalcade of right-wing maniacs who are grifting off of tragedy. All right, it's not just Sandy Hook. You have other people out there saying, oh, these are red flag exercises. These people weren't really shot. These are crisis actors. They did the same thing in Parkland. He was the ringleader of that part of the sort of QAnon, MAGA, gun violence isn't a real issue conspiracy. And so for him to get hit with a lot, I mean, a lot. You know, how many lawyers, how many fines you got? A lot. This was an amazing.
Yeah, it's more than 21 million, if you will.
More than 21 million, exactly. It was a savage penalty that he's facing. This will actually have major consequences because it's not just for the other people who lie like him, Ari. It's the other people who try and encourage it. It's the people who give them information. It's the independent journalists who go out and try and film things. It's the Republicans that go on their shows and laugh and giggle when these kinds of conspiracies are being put out there. This is a lesson for the internet. If they're not going to get shut down by Facebook and they're not going to get shut down by YouTube, then maybe the law will make some of these people take their lies seriously and the consequences from them seriously.
Yeah, I think both of you make important points. Will, I want to play a little bit more of the parents because this is reality and this is real people. And when you look at what you said, the money that Mr. Jones is making, the people he's consorting with, Roger Stone and others, this is all real. Let's listen to the parents.
I watched them all. I watched them all. I've seen all the videos. They took my identity. They took my identity.
All of our abilities to hold on to Daniel's memory, to cherish him and to honor him has been tarnished with toxic hate and lies.
Well,
I mean, it's so emotional to hear that testimony. I mean, you think about losing a child to begin with, and particularly in a violent way. I think any parent's nightmare. And then you talk about just having this prolonged for years and years. And look, I mean, this wasn't just, these conspiracy theories. I mean, this was activating people to threaten these parents. They're talking about defacing graves. Meanwhile, you have someone like Alex Jones back just kind of counting the money up, the notoriety and the audience this drew to him. And, Ari, I think you made a great point. This is not like a base level conspiracy theory. This is something that other people at InfoWars were warning him about. People that we would consider just really wacky conspiracy theorists were saying, this is too far, Alex. We're going too far, and this is going to blow up in our face. And today it did.
Yeah. Jason, I'm going to play the last bit. It's kind of like a little warning. This is the last time you have to hear Mr. Jones today, although know that you're looking at someone who's down $1 billion. And what he says about what you did allude to, and it is important because it all relates back to politics and policy in America and the way that people are trying to discredit families who speak out about gun violence and discredit these shootings, which are, of course, a weekly part of life in America. Here's Mr. Jones.
Right. They want to scare everybody away from freedom and scare us away from questioning Uvalde and what really happened there, or Parkland or any other event. And guess what? We're not scared, and we're not going away, and we're not going to stop.
You see there, Jason, talk about unrepentant, questioning Uvalde, something that, again, took the lives of so many innocent children, and that was a documented, well-covered event. Sadly, the way people talk about the news covering these things, but we had people on the ground, we had cameras all over the place, we covered the funerals. Despicable the way he's moving today, but I give you the final word both on that and anything else that you think today means in a huge victory of truth over lies for profit.
All right, I think it's important. For a long time, people looked at Alex Jones and his ilk like a modern-day internet version of the Weekly World News. Oh, alien meets Clinton, Bat Boy, blah, blah, blah. No, these people are much more dangerous than that. Because, as you've said, they're not just attacking innocent families attempting to profit off of them. They're challenging the fundamentals of our justice system. They're challenging the fundamentals of decency. They're encouraging people to dig into the lives of victims and re-victimize them and dox them in order to prove their non-provable conspiracy theories. We don't have a lot of government regulation when it comes to what you can print, what you can put on the internet. It is a shame that it required the courts to go after this guy for years and years and years before he faced the consequences. But as long as he's got any money, as long as there's anybody giving him $800,000 a day, $165 million a year at one point when he made it, as long as he's got any cash, I hope he loses every single bit of it. And I hope everybody out there who spreads the same kind of lies as him is terrified tonight and is reevaluating the kind of nonsense that they're saying online.
Yeah, I think you make powerful points, and Will, you're one of those people who's writing a book where people go, gosh, do we need a whole book on this? And if it's a factual book and if it's fact-checked, the answer is yes, because you have to beat this stuff back with facts. Will Sommer, Jason Johnson on the biggest story in America, and one that a lot of liars are looking at and going, oh, gosh, are my lies going to get too expensive? A big night for that. Thanks to both of you.